Guyana. This is a country that's both part of South America and the Caribbean. It's home to part of the Amazon rainforest, the Rupununi Savannah, and the highest single-drop waterfall in the world. Yet, despite being roughly the size of the United Kingdom, only 800,000 people live here. Those very people would take us in and treat us like family. So join us on our final weeks in South America as we prepare to leave from Guyana. Weeks after a tragic end to our time in Brazil, we found ourselves in Lethem, the only land border crossing between Brazil and Guyana. We were virtually out of money and grieving the loss of our dog when our friends gave us a contact in Guyana who might be willing to help us out while we prepared to go home. We really didn't think we would be making another video in South America, so we never recorded the border. Guyana, a former British colony, still has left-hand traffic and right-hand drive cars. At the border, this crossover switches the flow of traffic from the right-hand side to the left. Andrew and his friends welcomed us at the border and arranged for a hotel where we could rest up. The town of Lethem only has a population of 1,700 people, so it was quite a coincidence that they were there. Rodeo had just ended that weekend, and everyone was preparing for the long drive back to Guyana's capital, Georgetown. The nearly 600-kilometer road between the border with Brazil and the capital, known locally as the Trail, could either be completely dry or full of mud, depending on the season. Of all the countries we had been to, this one definitely had the highest concentration of 4x4s. We were told it was the thing to do. You build a rig and you take it on the trail. The Guyanese love off-roading. We would be part of a 3-truck convoy of Toyotas, a Tacoma, our Land Cruiser, and Andrew's truck, a first-generation 4Runner, known better as Swamp Monster. We headed out on the trail. The Amazon and the Rupununi Savannah were in a drought, so instead of mud, there would only be dust. As we flew down the dry road, I thought I could feel a vibration coming from our truck. With the rough washboard road, everything was shaking anyways, so I didn't know for sure. It was a pure coincidence that morning at breakfast, Nikki and I were talking about the idea of one day buying a Unimog, when Andrew and Bobby in the truck ahead happened to see one on the side of the road and stopped to check it out. Bobby Nazir, Andrew's uncle, would provide all the GoPro footage in this video. If you want to see more in-depth videos on Guyana, I'll leave a link to his channel. In fact, this video wouldn't be possible without these two guys. It turns out the Unimog was part of a convoy of 14 trucks, each one costing more than most homes. It was a good thing we stopped though, because the moment I put the truck in gear, our new U-joint exploded. I couldn't help but think back to that shop in Brazil. I thought they pressed the caps in on the new U-joint too tightly. It was way too stiff, but they said it would be fine. And now, less than 1,000 kilometers later, our rear drive shaft was in the dirt. It was pure luck we stopped to look at those trucks. A U-joint failing at high speed can cause some serious damage, or worse. After a few minutes, the rear drive shaft was out, and it was time to get back on the road. We're in front-wheel drive on the Land Cruiser. No rear drive shaft. I swear I knew this was going to happen too. I swear. Lucky we were just moving. We just stopped and then started. That was pure luck. Holy. They wouldn't have made it all the way to Georgetown at this speed. Even without a rear drive shaft, this part of the drive was pretty uneventful. Lots of dust and the occasional small town. We stopped to pick up some lunch and then kept going. Once we were back in the Amazon, we made a small detour. Courtesy of Bobby, we'd be heading up into the trees on the Iwokrama canopy walkway. Here, a local tour guide would take us up to a series of bridges suspended between various trees high up in the canopy. Eventually, after a nice break from the driving, we got back in our trucks. The drive from Lethem to Guyana is nearly 12 hours, and we had to catch a ferry. The trail only runs through a few small settlements, so it's common practice to bring extra fuel for the journey.
The Essequibo River water. You haven't been here. You need to touch it. You need to rinse. Now you have been to Essequibo, right? Always remember that. And the next thing you have to have lava. So if you drink black water and you eat lava, you have to come back. And that's what happened many, many years ago. I was in the Patara River, had black water and lava, which is a wild animal, it's a rodent actually. So that was the same back then. So that's the reason why I'm here.
You're back, yeah.
I have to come back.
You gotta come back.
Yeah. It doesn't matter what it is.
We eventually loaded up onto the ferry, which would take us across Guyana's largest river, the Essequibo River. At over 1,000 kilometers long, the Essequibo River starts in the Iwokrama Mountains on the Brazil-Guyana border and ultimately ends in northern Guyana, where it empties into the Atlantic Ocean. This would not be our last time on this river.
If you're welcoming
I have the honors.
Guyana, so we're putting our flag on there, and I'm doing the honor of putting that on. And here they are. Well, guys,
Thank you.
There you go, man. No, thank you. It was a long day. We would drive late into the night, stopping at the occasional small settlement to get some food and coffee. It was so hot and dry that there were also occasional brush fires along the sides of the road. We arrived at our destination sometime in the middle of the night. We found ourselves at Shane's place, known better as Savannah Tours Guyana. Shane was kind enough to put us up in his cabin while we figured out how we were going to get home. Over the next few weeks, he would also show us around Georgetown. The property is fit with a cabin, swimming pool, and even a pet javelina called Kira. But the best part is the ATV tours Shane provides through the many trails in the local savannah. Soon after arrival, we were invited to get on the ATVs and go for a ride, along with some Brazilians who were visiting with their side-by-sides. One early and smoky morning, we found ourselves driving Shane's Suzuki Jimny to Georgetown to meet back up with Andrew and Bobby. From here, we would be meeting up with some friends and family to go on a boat tour along the Essequibo River. Essequibo belongs to Guyana. You might have noticed these signs and stickers throughout the video. This refers to a long territorial dispute between Guyana and neighboring Venezuela. You'd think Venezuela has bigger things to worry about with its current economic state, but in March 2024 they passed a law that designates the Essequibo region, which encompasses the majority of Guyana, as part of Venezuela. They submitted this bill to the Supreme Court to validate its constitutionality. Guyana fortunately has the support of nearby Brazil as well, though the dispute, or at least variations of it, has been going on for well over 100 years. We met our tour guide Chris and crossed the Demerara River on an old floating bridge built by the Dutch, on our way to the Essequibo River. Our first stop was to Fort Island, aptly named for the existence of an 18th century Dutch fort. The island, located in the Essequibo Islands West Demerara region, once served as the capital of Essequibo, a former Dutch colony.
Civilization that they already had, starving out any ship or forcing them to find another way out. And so when the British came in, it wasn't just this island. All the small islands that we passed on the way in had small fortresses too.
After learning about the fort's history from our guide Chris, we were given some time to walk around the grounds where we could see the old cannons and armory. The island has a small population of just under 100 people. On the way to the old church, we stopped to get some fresh coconuts. Nice. A short walk away on the other side of the island is an old church which has since been turned into a heritage museum. It's full of old artifacts from the colonial era. This church was also used for the auctioning of slaves as well as a courthouse. Nikki was able to translate the scripts on the tombs of the buried Dutchmen below the church. The island was just the first stop of the tour, and soon we were back on the boat heading to our next location. Our next stop was the much bigger island of Bartica, located on the west bank of the Essequibo River. It's often used as a launch point for people working in the bush, mining gold and diamonds. The name Bartica comes from an indigenous word meaning red earth. Next, we made our way to the ROI Resort on the Mazaruni River. Here we had a nice lunch and got to escape the heat by enjoying the swimming pools. Finally, we joined a group to go just across the river for a small walk to a waterfall. Although with how dry everything was, the river was low and the waterfall was just a small trickle. After a long hot day, we were treated once again by our friends, this time to a beautiful vegetarian restaurant where we had incredible natural juices and smoothies, as well as great food and company. On that trip, we were with Andrew's aunt and uncle. A day or two later, we made plans for us and Shane's family to go visit them.
Where are we going? What's your name? What do you do?
Okay, so we're heading on the road. It's a road trip to Barbies, the Kendron, and maybe to my Coney.
Yeah.
And we're gonna have some lunch and some curry lamb, right?
Yeah.
Curry lamb, maybe some duck. Oh, my name is Shane, Savannah Tours, and
Right.
Jalen is the photographer, cameraman. Yeah.
My short.
My sure, yes, there.
Okay.
Yes, all right. Cut.
Yeah, I heard about them in same travelers. So
A few years ago, Guyana found large offshore oil reserves and for the past few years has been by far the fastest growing economy in the world.
Yeah. Show them how it's done.
Can I have that?
oh, just straws, right?
Yeah.
You show them how it's done.
This duck is nice.
We stopped for some delicious curry for lunch and after grabbing some fresh fruit, made our way to Chris and Andrew's place.
Introduce yourself.
Introduce yourself because he wants me, but I can't do that.
You come to me house. And who are you?
I'm Jalen Dunrat,
Yeah, you're the
son of Shane Dunrat.
What are you eating?
A cashew from this beautiful cashew tree.
What do we have in this jug?
Coconut water.
Coconut water.
With jelly.
The jelly.
Oh, wow.
And then we
Fresh.
have fresh, just picked off of the tree, and we have some here that is already ready picked and
Yeah.
ready to drink from the nut. We have 3 jugs of this upstairs,
Wow.
waiting for y'all.
Yeah.
So we had fresh coconut water and a fire was getting started as well.
Look how I just control this thing. Oil, put oil in there.
Hey, boy, no,
See how the thing hot?
Masalo.
Put whatever
No,
you...
this is curry. Oh, curry masalo. Yeah.
This is a professional cook.
It's good?
That's your recipe?
Yeah, yeah. That's what it is. It's called we call it lamb.
It's so good.
Here, you got the pasta, you have fish, you have the rice, you have the dal.
The final dish was lamb curry from the fire. This was a really difficult time for Nikki and I after how things had ended in Brazil for us, so we were very grateful for the kindness and hospitality of our new friends.
And we are all hanging out here.
I think so. Well, for us, Sometime later, we were back in Andrew's truck. We picked up some food for the day and made our way to meet Shane, who was bringing an ATV out for another adventure.
And it's actually going to be on that piece of wood there. And it's actually coming down. Check that out. Now this is offloading.
Wow. Now that's skillful. And look at this, how he's riding actually. Look at that.
You gotta feel that play out in the steering.
I finally got the chance to drive Swamp Monster. We were heading down a network of trails in the forest in Savannah to a small indigenous community called Maracaibo. From the air, we were able to see the various bushfires in the savannah responsible for the smoky air. In the rainy season, these dry, sandy trails fill with water, and the river crossing we were about to take becomes impossible. This river marks the edge of the community. In the rainy season, the river can be easily 15 feet higher. We had finally made it to Maracaibo. In Guyana, when entering any indigenous land, it's customary to go see the Tashao, the community chief, and ask for permission to pass through or stay. Shane knows this community well and sorted everything out for us. We even had some lunch here and went for a swim in the river to cool down.
He's alive.
So that's going to be a deco lodge. That's a kitchen. In here it's like a bar, whatever it is, a dining area for the community. And this is the river where we can cool down. Let's get into Maracaibo. This is coconut tree stop, the famous coconut tree. Stop here, take a break, and then you keep going.
You heard Bobby. This coconut tree is famous for being essentially the only one in the area for some reason. It marks a crossroads in the trail system here. The trails in Guyana seem to be endless. On another day, we went into Georgetown with Shane to run some errands. He also took the opportunity to show us around the city that day. It seemed like everyone we met in Guyana was happy to see us there, and everyone was also curious how we liked it. The hospitality and friendliness of the locals in Guyana was unmatched to anywhere we had been before. Guyana is also the only English-speaking country in the South American continent, a result of being a former British colony. Guyana's main population is mostly either of African or Indian descent, or mixed, and about 10% Amerindian, with less than 1% of the population being white. Georgetown itself is interesting because while it's the capital of Guyana, it's also essentially the only large city in the country. It's located on the east bank of the Demerara River and the Atlantic coast. Here at the harbor, there's a huge historic market called the Stabroek Market, as well as a ferry service across the river. The floating bridge we had taken on our way to the boat tour is only one lane each way, and as a result gets some serious traffic during rush hour from people commuting to and from different sides of the river. Taking one of these small boats can be a much faster option. Shane hired a boat for us to take a look at Georgetown from the water. In the last 50 years, the population of Guyana has barely increased 10%, and despite having a population under 1 million people, I went to school and knew a number of Guyanese people back in Canada when I was growing up. That's because for every 2 Guyanese people in Guyana, there's 1 living abroad. Though it seems with the recent economic boom, things are starting to change. After a few weeks, Nikki and I had secured our plane tickets to leave South America. It was our last night in Guyana, and we would celebrate by going out on the ATVs again and having a barbecue. Uncle Mike, Andrew's chief mechanic, was behind the wheel of Swamp Monster. The rest of us were on quads. After a break to have some barbecue, we went back out again.
There's fresh egg. They pick up eggs that came today. That's what it is.
And just like that, our entire Pan American trip was over. Shane dropped us off at the airport in the middle of the night, and that was it. We can't thank the people who helped us through the end of our trip enough. They really treated us like family. We never thought this video was going to happen, and without the people you've seen throughout the video, it really wouldn't have. Guyana will be back.